Yeah.
Uh,
So
welcome everyone.
everybody.
Thank you for being here with us. Tonight we have a really special guest and talking about electromagnetic frequencies, EMRs, electromagnetic radiation, 5G, all different types of topics dealing with things that we are surrounded by these days.
Right.
And here's the quote: "It is through science that we prove, but through intuition that we discover."
We always like to pick a quote that's meaningful for us. And so in our practice, we use a lot of science to give explanations to people of why something is important. But we also do a lot of things like muscle testing and Silva method, and we teach classes on those things so that people can really tap into their intuition first and then verify later, because you tapping into your body in that way is going to really give you the best results.
Yeah. How true that is. It's funny how I've always believed in the fact is that your body is so much more intelligent than your brain. And
Yeah.
it does have one specific thing to do, and it does it very well, and that's to keep you alive. And a lot of people don't recognize or realize that if you threaten it, it's going to vomit, it's going to get sick. Don't put anything in me that's going to make me feel bad.
Yeah.
That's the way the body reacts to what our brain says. You know what? I'm going to go out and have a couple of drinks. And, the guy who doesn't do that very often will drink more than he needs. That's toxin going into your system. And then you get sick. And then you wonder, well, God, I just don't understand. I can't drink. And somebody will say, oh, you're just a lightweight. And if that, of course, adds more fuel, I'm not really a lightweight. I'm going to prove that guy that I'm not a lightweight. And then you get sicker. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you stop and realize that we don't understand our body, but our body understands us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
True.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, you guys are really great. I love the way you do things together. It's an important fact that you both have the same passion, and when you start to go out there and you talk to people, the first thing that comes to my mind is that I want to be around people that know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. And, and that's why we're here. We love teaching. The word doctor means to teach. That's all about who we are at Dr. Me and You. And for those of you that are new to this talk or haven't been on in a while, I'm Dr. Matthew.
I'm Dr. Michelle.
And tonight we have a guest speaker, Richard Eaton, and he, in my opinion, is just an amazing person. He's talking about EMFs, EMRs, like I was saying before, 5G. But what's really interesting about him is how I found him. So I was looking for different ways to deliver frequencies. Everyone that knows us, we love doing frequency medicine. We have an app that does frequency medicine, and in about a year ago or so, we were looking for a way to deliver frequencies that wasn't necessarily through an app, that would give people a way to do it. And I was like, oh man, maybe there's like frequency patches. And so I started digging, and I found a patent for frequency patches.
Right.
And once I did that, then I found who owned the patent, and that was Richard. And then I found him, and I was like, I cannot believe I found this, but hey, this is, how I, and he's like, oh yeah, we work with, engineers, and we have this machine that these guys, and I believe it was from NASA, right? Or from these NASA engineers.
These are NASA engineers, and it's funny how we tripped on them. I went to college, San Diego State University with them. They were part of a team I really want to get into that arena, but they were engineers working on sonic and supersonic weapons, which are all dealing with frequencies. And it's a kind of a long story, but I'll cut it real short over the very simple fact that I felt that didn't sink in my brain, like what a sound, that really didn't make any sense to me. I remember seeing I guess it was a commercial that this woman was singing and broke a wine glass. And I thought, well, that's really interesting because sound can do that. Well, they took it to another level, and of course, they were making weapons for a developer that was in Southern California as well. And I got to know them, and I started to realize that my little contribution to life was near nothing compared to what these guys are doing. So the more we talked, the more we kind of collaborated together. I have a sense of being an entrepreneur, so I'm constantly looking around to see what will work and what will not work. And I kind of got into health a long time ago with a partner of mine who we decided to open up a relatively simple business, but it became very, very complicated. And we were trying to reduce EMF and EMR from cell phones and computers. That was our first business, called EMR. EMR Technologies is what it was called. Since then, he passed away, and then I took it over and I opened up a company called Alpha Biocentrics. And kind of an odd story with that. We were very proud to say Alpha Biocentrics is a company. It's good. It's doing this and doing that. And we would constantly get phone calls and say, "Is this Alfabio?" And I thought, what are you asking? So Alfabio was the name of the company because they couldn't understand to break it up, Alpha Biocentrics. So we changed it now to AB Centrics, and now that's our new name, is AB Centrics. Instead of a C, instead of an X, it has a C at the end of Centrics. But I don't know if that has a big interest anymore. To me, it's kind of old school. That's where we started. And that was 34, 35 years ago, I guess. And, since then we've moved into, patches, but we're still focused in on the effects of EMF and EMR in your home and the way you live, because you live by, electrical problems. And what I was telling you about earlier is that if you were to test your environment, and everybody has the same environment, if you were to test your environment, you would see that you're living under 60 hertz. Well, 60 hertz is not good. It's not conducive to human cells. Your body relates better if you're into 8 hertz. Well, where is 8 hertz available? It's only available if you live in a log cabin. Now, nobody wants to live in a log cabin. So that's the distinguishing scenarios. And we kind of started to realize that we were kind of going against all problems, and nobody really wanted to talk to us about how we're going to reduce the effects on your phone. And so we kind of dropped that for a while. That wasn't an issue. And then we started working on, well, how we can balance the body with energy. And that's when we started to realize that frequency has a definite benefit if you give it just enough. And the way we do it, we make a mobile patch that you can actually put on your body. And the mobile patch is actually made with 3M, a 3M company product. And you wear it for 72 hours, you take it off, and then you put another one on. And you do that for about 30 days. And that 30-day period of time kind of balances your body's energy to rectify what that problem is. Now, interesting enough, if you don't have a problem, it's not going to help you. Where a lot of people want to put on a patch and go, I wonder what it feels like. And they don't even know what they're doing. That's why we always want to work with doctors or therapists, because if we work with the general public, it becomes a big question mark. What is it you want? And they'll always say, I want to feel better, but they don't know why or how or whatever the situation is. So there's a huge learning curve that we're trying to do right now in our business, and that's to get people to educate themselves on how energy in your body works and how to work with a doctor who understands that. And then we have a connection. And then that connection becomes even broader, bigger. And then right now, like I said, we have close to 2,500, almost maybe 3,000 doctors that we work with just in the United States. And each one of those people will buy, patches for their customer base in conjunction with their own therapy. So
Yeah.
it works beautiful. We just kind of like, we want to be there for them to answer questions, but we can't get into the medical arena with them.
Yeah.
we just kind of stop there and say, here's the tool, you work with that, and then you're going to get some kind of relief from that problem. And it usually is pain. That's our number one selling product. I should say pain and stress and anxiety are the two that we sell the most. But we have 67 different products. So you can imagine there's a lot of doctors that have got patients that have all kinds of problems. And some of them work very well. And there's some of them that are, you know, an autoimmune problem that you can't resolve because it's an ongoing scenario, but we can reduce the symptoms.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we exist so well within the arena, that we can reduce the symptoms rather than having a cure, because you can't cure some of the autoimmune problems, as you know.
Yeah, we found them pretty useful. I mean, because again, you know, because we do phone, you know, these patches was just another way for us to be like, okay, well, if you don't, you know, feel comfortable doing the app and you don't want to, you know, show frequencies that way, here is, you know, essentially a device you can put on your skin. And it's not really even, I wouldn't even say it's a device. It's like a sticker.
Right.
It's like a
Right.
sticker that you put on your skin that has embedded frequencies onto it. And then as soon as essentially it connects with, you know, heat of the body, and that's how it activates.
And
Right.
some people are just more tactile and they want to know that they have something on them that's
Yeah.
providing a consistent therapy versus something that they listen to or something that they see.
And we did find different uses, you know, I mean, there's, you know, environmental toxins, heavy metals, that we've tested with, and it's really been a lot of fun to kind of test on different places in the body. You know, so I mean, I know that the guy over in Europe, you know, in Spain, he goes to town on them, but
Yeah.
he does have a method a little bit to his madness of like where he places them and why he's placing them in different places.
Right.
And I think the body is like an energy grid in that way. And so so it's been really complementary to a lot of different therapies and different ways of using it. So that was my first, you know, introduction. And then obviously
We've also found that different people have different thresholds for it. I don't know if you've seen this, but I see with certain blood types, some of the newer blood types like AB are a little bit more sensitive to frequencies. And so
Oh.
they actually don't need as many patches to feel a really, really strong effect.
true.
So like myself, I'm AB negative and I can only handle about 3 patches at a time before it's almost overload for my system. So
Wow.
tweaked my neck the other day. I had on Healing XL and I had on inflammation, and
Yeah.
in probably 4 or 5 days, all of that subsided and went away. And I felt a huge difference.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah. No, it's really interesting because, you know, you guys are tipping on things that are extremely important, because you're doing your own research, and that's really important as well. One of the factors that we found is that um, we wait to hear from our doctors on what's happening. Sometimes we'll add a different frequency onto like our pain and our pain and inflammation patch. Um, there's some people that feel that they got to have 2 or 3 patches on them before it kind of reduces that inflammation, which is true. It all depends on what it is that you're doing. That's why the input is so important. You know, we just don't want to sell a patch and forget it. You know, that's not who we are. We like to sell a patch to people who kind of use it. I keep saying that as a tool, because the tool is going to either do something for them or it's not. And the reason why it's not doing something, just like you said, Michelle, is that you don't know what that blood type is. What if you were to investigate the blood type and go, wait a minute, there's something here that we need to look at? You know, you got to ask that question, what blood type are you? And I don't think anybody's really done that.
No, and it's crazy. We found it, and we've been collaborating with people overseas that have been verifying the same thing, that, you know, the older blood types, like, oh, you know, they are more resistant and resilient towards frequencies. So you would need to put on a lot more patches, which is funny because that's what I am. I'm O.
Yeah.
And so like she'll put on like 2 or 3, I'll put on 2 or 3, I won't feel it.
But I will immediately.
But she will immediately.
She will.
And so like I need to put on like several before I'll actually have that, you know, visceral feeling on this. And it's not to say that it's not working, because it does work. You know, even when I put on a couple, you know, over the couple days, it does, you know, have its effect, but it's not an immediate, obviously, you know, in our world. And
Yeah.
definitely in the United States, we like things immediate.
And that's
Yeah.
also why even though we provide frequency medicine through the app that we have, some of my people who have O blood type, a lot of times they like to combine the patches and the frequency app, because then
Yeah.
you're getting a much stronger effect that
Mm.
they would get otherwise from one or the other.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think that's a good idea. As long as you can communicate with your patients, let them see that this is a non-chemical, non-drug entity that would work on a child, even a baby, even. We don't necessarily want to recommend there's a problem with the child, but you never know. These are very, very safe products to use on just about anybody, whether you're young or old. It doesn't make any difference. But what's really kind of cool, we've got some people that are in the Midwest that have been buying patches from us by the hundreds. I don't know who their patients are, but they are constantly, we are selling them more than we would sell anybody else. Kind of the same thing in California. I think that there's some odd things that are going on in California. I think a lot of it has to do with stress and anxiety issues, emotional issues. Whether that stems from just being in California, I don't know. But I'm a Californian. I'm telling you, I love California, but not anymore. It's way too crowded. It's been corrupted by so many crazy politicians, and I feel like there's issues there, and a lot of people are under stress.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, going back to the Midwest, we've been finding that we came up with a new patch just lately, and it's called Abundance or Abundance, depending on how you want to say it. But what it does, it helps you deal with self-esteem and helps you deal with just making yourself feel good. All of a sudden, people are buying that like faster than pain and inflammation.
Wow.
And we put it in a kind of a cool little package, and the package just say abundance. And people love it because they seem to get an immediate effect from it. And it's because they're lacking something in their brain that says, I need something to make me feel abundant. I want to have abundance come my way.
Yeah.
It's a weird saying that, and we've got this from a doctor who requested that. That same doctor has been selling them, and so we found that we listen to what's going on, and we then will recommend, as long as they sell enough of them, that we can make that change or the alteration on it. And it seems to do extremely well with a lot of their patients. So we're happy that they can communicate with us, and then we find a product that's going to be good for them, and then off we go together.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to, then it was just recently, I mean, well, maybe not recently, over the last like 8 months, 9 months, we've been talking about, EMF blocker and EMRs, and then you were telling me about obviously the Merlin, and that's like a passion project for you, right? That's like what, 2 or 3 years in the making.
Oh no, it's
So if you can just like maybe give a brief introduction of like EMF, EMR, what kind of impact that has, and then maybe move into like how that moved you into doing this Merlin project over the last several years.
Well, and again, it comes back from the original corporation that my partner and I had. It was called EMR Technologies, that we dropped because nobody really wanted to buy any stuff for their phones. Everybody's going, I feel great talking on my phone. I don't feel sick. And then, of course, after a period of time, all these reports starting to come out, and people are saying, there's a problem with these phones. And the problem is that it's emitting radiation. And that, again, is something that we had studied a long time with our own engineers, the original people that we talked to. And that was the catalyst, I guess, to start the motion back again. Because once we started selling a lot of patches, then I reinvented or bringing back in products that were as good or better than we originally started. And we found that there was an interest. There was a growing concern about your cell phone, your computers, anything that is plugged into a wall, a receptacle, and you turn it on, you're emitting electromagnetic radiation. It's small, but think about being around that for 8 or 9 hours, 5 days a week for 20 years. You are getting radiation into your system. It's small, but radiation does not dissipate like it would, like draining your water or going to the bathroom. It doesn't do that. It stays with you in your brown fat. So we have a lot of studies that we work with, and we work with a lot of leading edge doctors that were saying, we have to find answers. And we did. We found the answer by our own engineers that the problem with electronics is that there is a danger in one of the what I call the bands of electromagnetic radiation, and that's called that band is a negative ion, or an ion, a band that produces a radiation that is not good for your human cells. Now, what's interesting is that we then produced a small little device that you can put on your cell phone, and we show how it works on a video. It's on our website, and it's emitting all the time a certain kind of frequency that brings that negative ion, or that ion, that's not the right word I'm saying, but there is a band of radiation that it splits it and it makes it less harmful. And the reason why that is the one that's focusing on all the bands that are inside that phone that's producing that is that you need something, you have to target something to reduce that. And we found that that particular brand, or that phone, let's say, is producing a heck of a lot more radiation than most. So that started that whole evolution of going, let's look into radiation as a product that we can maybe help people that might have deficiencies that are caused by radiation. And sure enough, if you were to go out and really test people and find out what's really going on, you're going to find that people have been utilizing their electronics most of their life for at least 10 or 12 years. I mean, think about when the iPhone was started up. I mean, think about that and start thinking about how long we've been around with computers and how long we've been around with other products. But nobody really understands that the human body doesn't, there's no equalizer there. There's nothing there that's going to prevent your cells from absorbing that. That is always going to be constantly being absorbed into your system. So we started to realize that we have to educate a lot of people because people just don't get it. And we started to think about, again, there's a process in which you have to work with people who are intelligent enough to know that there is a significant reoccurrence, that if you're around a cell phone constantly, the idea of you might picking up cancer, and cancer, what I call a mutant cell disturbance, it could be anything, it could be a tumor, but it's more prevalent if you're around that electronic force that's constantly giving you radiation on the level that you might think is safe, but it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's, right? I don't know if it's Dr. Mercola or Klinghardt, but I think one
Mercola.
of them. Okay, so it's Mercola that is really big on, like, if you're sick, you should immediately get away from any and all electronics. And he has a lot of his patients, like he'll be, because I know that he's really big on like parasite cleanses, because there's a lot of, studies and stuff that shows, parasites being attracted to, large amounts of electromagnetic frequencies in the body. And you got to think about it, right? Whenever your body is either alkaline or acidic, I would imagine if you're acidic, then you become almost supercharged.
Right.
And your electromagnetic frequency in your field becomes out of balance and then attracts that environment for that to happen. And so I know that he's really big on removing electronics when you're trying to cure stuff like tumors and cancer and stuff like that.
Right. And that's a very true fact. I tried to get a hold of him one time, and because I'm busy and he's busy, we've never been able to really contact each other. But somebody keeps telling me, get a hold of him, talk to him, see whether or not he's open for any kind of discussion. Not that I want to have an endorsement on our products, but I do want to get his input because he studied that for a long time.
Yeah.
It's on the other side of the fence. When he first started, he was actually promoting cell phones and said, there's not a problem. You can smoke this cigarette and you're not going to get cancer, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he did it by going through cell phones. Come to find out that the study he did on cell phones was like, holy Detroit, man, this is horrible. It's going to cause you to have brain tumors if you keep doing it. And, the thing is, the biggest problem is that, everything runs on the buck. Everybody's got their choice. You can buy a product and you can believe that it's okay because somebody tells you it's okay. The biggest problem is that nobody's done enough studies. And if they have, they're not going to disclose those studies because it's going to be too shocking to know that we're up against a very hard line. And that is, we want things that are fast. We're instantaneous. I want results right now. In 3 minutes, I want to know what my answer is, that type of thing. That's why AI is becoming so popular right now, because AI right now, that is starting to be sort of the new thing, that you can get information from an AI in about 4 seconds, right? Where it might take something, 30 minutes or even a couple of hours to get you the same problem. So we're constantly being fed this. And at the same time, we don't realize that we need to walk away from it for a while. Just like Marcola was saying, if you don't feel good, if you're sick, get away from that, because you're going to feel a lot better when you don't have that around you. I feel the same way, but I'm at the other point where I like to produce something that protects you from that.
But would you say like barefoot, or, like walking barefoot on the ground?
Grounding yourself is very, very important, but you got to know how to do it. You just can't, go out on your patio and step on a cement and go, I'm grounded. No, you got to go out on earth and ground yourself correctly. There's a lot of people that do that on the beach, which is good. You need to do that occasionally, but you can't just take it for granted. You got to make that effort to be good to yourself. You know what I mean? Instead of being overzealous about how profitable you are, well, let's go out and celebrate. At 9 o'clock, we're going to have a steak dinner, and we're going to try to get our body to take care of all of those issues. And of course, 11 o'clock, you finally stop eating, and then you want to go to sleep. It's the worst thing you can do to your body. Yeah. So there's all these issues that people need to know, that you have to do what you would common sense tell you to do. And that's really just take care of the basics. I notice that you're hydrating yourself, which is good. One of the things that we always tell people, if you want to use our patches, you really got to learn how to hydrate yourself.
Oh, we do that all the time.
Talk about it all the time.
And especially when they're doing any kind of frequency medicine or the patches specifically. I remember, we had early on, people doing the patches and like, well, I'm kind of feeling a little tired, and I'm like, how is your water?
A little nauseous or a little dizzy.
They're like, well, I haven't really been drinking water.
And are you drinking water?
And they're like, well, why would the patches matter? I'm like, well, think about it. Like, you're getting all this new information into your body to execute things that maybe you haven't been executing.
Right.
So yeah, you need energy to do it. And water is, that's kind of your dance. And that's kind of how, frequencies are going to be able to hit your body a lot better, is if you're hydrated, right? That's how communication happens.
Right. And what's really odd is that, your body is producing energy constantly, and it's a different form of energy. But if you were to look at what we actually produce, we do have, I think it's like 2.02 amount of amps that we're producing constantly. So we are an electrical entity in a sense. Without that, our heart wouldn't beat, we wouldn't be alive, we wouldn't be living entities. So we go back again to the basics. And the basics are really trying to tell you is that you've got to be in an environment that is conducive to you, not conducive to what you think you need to have around you. Like, I feel so sorry for the people in New York City. Can you imagine living in New York City constantly being bombarded with everything that you can imagine, including negative thoughts and negative ideas, people trying to rob you. You don't know whether your car's being vandalized or not. That's 24/7. And I couldn't stand it. I could not live like that. But
Yeah.
there's people that say, you know what? That's the way I live. I live that way. That's the brain telling the body to shut up. You know, the brain thinks it's doing the right thing, but the body's going, no, get me out of here.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here. But it is what it is, you know, and we don't try to tell everybody, you know, you're doing the wrong thing. It's what you do, what you want to do, but do it moderately, and make sure that you're educating yourself about who and what you need and for your environment. Do you feel good in your environment? And if you do, fine. If you don't, then look for other environments part-time, to be around something part-time.
Yeah.
Now, just go back a little bit, like I was explaining, my vision over Merlin was to get it into people's homes via doctors and therapists. Now, the reason why is that I didn't want to populate the advertising agency group and say, you know, we've got a product that is really made for everybody. Everybody's got to buy this tower. We wanted to get people. The first line of defense is the people that know about your body. That is most important to me. If you just go on TV and you sell it to everybody that just says, yeah, I'd like to buy that, they don't really understand what or how it's working. You need to have smart people around you that can direct you in a sense. And so we make it primarily for doctors and therapists. And all it is primarily, I'll be honest with you, it's just a small little amped little device that puts out an EMP. And that is,
Why don't you show it? Don't you have, you have
yeah,
one?
let me, I don't know whether you can see it. I'm trying to get my own little picture there, but
Yeah.
you can see that it's a little area to where it works beautifully with everything that we've found. We've sold maybe 24, 25, maybe more than that, to be honest with you. And everybody so far have come back and everybody says the same thing. At first, they didn't know what it's going to do. And then all of a sudden they started to realize that it's mobile, so you can take it with you. It comes with a 9-volt battery, or you can plug it in the back. It doesn't make a difference. But once it's on, it's pushing out enough EMP in low volume to take the 5G or even 4G signal and move it away from you, because signals can be moved. They just it's like a line of travel. If it hits an obstacle like a tree, believe it or not, these people who are putting these towers up will cut down the tree to make that signal go through the next tower. So we don't do that. We simply put out a pulse, and that is a counter reaction to the signal, that you can still operate your phone, your computer, do everything you can. But what it does, it creates an envelope that is made specifically for you and is putting out 8 hertz. So your environment is putting out 8 hertz if you have that around you, which is conducive for your body. And it also takes the negative effect of the 5G emissions from your environment. So your environment can be changed in an essence by buying one of these little units. And you can put it in your home, you put it where you sleep, you can put it where you work. It doesn't make any difference where you go with it. The fact is that it doesn't scream or yell. It doesn't have any problems. There's no negative thing with it. The only thing you got to do is keep it around you constantly. And while you're doing that, it's feeding you that 8 hertz, like I was saying. So it's like a little environmental tug to get you back into a better place in your environment. That's really what
And you would say, and it goes about what it's 21 feet, right, in diameter?
it's a 29 point something feet in diameter. It's like a big round thing. You can imagine how it all came about is that you got a new technology right now in your cars. I don't know whether you have a new car or, I mean, I have a 2002 Mercedes, and that Mercedes has got everything you can imagine. If I make a left turn and there's a car there, that turn, when I do that, will alert me and say, no, dummy, you can't make a left turn. There's a car there. So that system is in your car, right? Well, we put that system right inside of this unit, and we decided that what we were going to do is to reinvent the idea of putting in a clean environment. So that's what's causing this thing to react. So it's like having that invisible force that you can't see, but when you turn your car that you're going to go left and there's somebody there, it's alerting you that there's somebody there, don't turn. So I can't remember what it's called. It's a name, a Dawson or something like that, but it's a newer technology. And that's the antenna that's in there that's making that happen within that little environment of 7 meters.
Got it. Okay. And so you, just like you said, there's going to be no problems with cell phones. Like you'll still get signal, you'll still be able to make calls, receive calls, you know, do all that dance. It's really kind of enveloping the whole. So instead, it's almost like a needle. I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like almost like a needle in a haystack, meaning the haystack used to be the EMRs and electromagnetic frequency because we would just be magnetized around all these signals. And now it's like, okay, great. The needle is the 5G and the haystack is now that 8 hertz, envelope. And so it's like, yeah, the signal can still come through, but not in the, blasted way that it was.
Right. Yeah. If you don't have some kind of protection, what you're doing is you're putting yourself always at risk. And that risk is not measurable because nobody really cares about that risk. And that's where the problem is. If people cared about that risk, there would be products that would say, this product only does blah, blah, blah within this little community. It doesn't work with anything else. The problem is that in order for us to have a 5G product around us, a phone, a computer, something that's going to make that 5G work, you need emissions. That is a large signal that gives you that 5G power. So without that 5G power, your system is not going to come together. It's not going to work right. Just like a 5G phone cannot work under a 4G system. A 5G phone will only work with a 5G signal. So, but they're invisible. You can't see them. You don't know what it is. You got to be around a tower. When you're finally connected to a 5G tower on your 5G phone, all of a sudden everything lights up. Okay, but the problem is that 5G emissions is not really the best thing. It's not that you're in best environment. Your best environment is, again, to get away from that, get back into it 8 hertz, the log cabin theory, and stay there for a while until you can get away from that. Well, that's what this little thing does. It puts you into that log cabin without having to go into the log cabin. You're right there with it all the time. It's kind of weird because when we first, I requested it. I'm the one that usually comes up and say, oh, I wonder what if blah, blah, blah. Well, by doing that, I can't tell you how much I spent, but it's close to 180,000. And that money is just out there for the electronic engineers to commercialize this product, to make it safe enough to use without calling the FCC to come in and break us down. Because if we said we've got a machine that will disable all the signals around your area, well, that's war.
Yeah.
And they would come after me and say, give me that machine and we're going to arrest you and put you into jail because you can't do that. You got to have the freedom. Freedom is there for people to make that choice. I agree with that. The question is, do you want to be around that constant evolution of electromagnetic signal, or would you rather be in that log cabin to give you a safe environment that your body really wants? It
And I
needs.
also remember you saying that it has like a USB where if you ever need to like upgrade it or update the software within it, you can just hook it up, right?
Yeah. What we're going to do, that isn't on this particular system, and I'll tell you why. That first group of money, and I'm investing my own money into this thing. I don't have a group of people going, "Hey, we want to do this, this, and this." That would probably take another $20,000 or $30,000 just to get that into this little unit. So that's going to be probably our next wave of things. But what I want to do is to introduce it to people who have a feeling like they want to have protection, but they don't know what, and they don't know where or how to get it. Now, if you look up an EMR protecting device on the internet, you're going to find them that you can buy them for your home or your business. And they start at $5,000 or $6,000 up to $25,000 for protection against that kind of radiation in your office or in your home. Now, they'll work, but the problem is they can't guarantee that you're going to have your signal at 100%. So they're the ones that are producing the environment that's going to cause your system to either be effective or non-effective, where ours is just kind of giving you that 7-meter, that little log cabin thing I was telling you about, and that log cabin can follow you everywhere you go. And it's not effective, it's not ruining what your system is already running to do. So if somebody takes it and they're in five, let's say a 5G site, or everybody's using their cell phones, and you walk in there with this thing, you put it down, turn it on, it's not going to hurt anybody who's using 5G phones or 5G equipment. It's going to just be there for you, and you can still use your equipment, but it just lessens that radiation or emission that's coming from the towers.
And you said it takes 9 volts.
Yeah, it takes 9 volts. You can just plug it in. You can just, we put a little 9-volt battery in there. It'll last for about 3 months or thereabouts, 3 or 4 months, maybe longer. Or you can plug it into the wall, and it uses a very, very low amperage because there's not a lot of electronics in it. The electronics that are in there are what we call antennas. And those antennas are actually pushing out the EMP signal away in that 7-meter, like a big round. It's round is what it is. So we started doing that, and I got somebody in, believe it or not, I got somebody, they were in Texas. I've used 4 different electronic engineers to do this. The first guy was, he was sharp and he knew exactly what I wanted, but, he said it's going to cost you a lot of money to do this. And I spent quite a bit of money on the first unit, and he actually made a prototype. And then I had to get that prototype verified. So I went to another guy who is an electronic engineer, and he looked at it and said, you know what, this thing is very complicated. I don't know what you're after. And he wasn't very friendly to the idea about, emissions, because I think he wanted emissions rather than saying we got to control emissions. So it wasn't helpful. But, $5,000 later, I walked away going, I should never have talked to that guy,
Yeah.
But you learn from him. And then I had to go to a company that was in Utah. And they were very, very comfortable with it. They thought, no problem at all. We can actually make this for you. And that's when they described it as being, this is an EMP device. That's what they described, that the original guy made. So I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Now, how is it going to work, and what is it going to do? I asked all the questions because I'm a novice. I'm not electronic background, but I'm curious. So I wanted to be the first guy on the block to have something like this at a relatively low price and offer it to doctors and therapists to make sure that they understand if they got patients that need something like this, this is where you buy it. You buy it through you, or, you know, through your company. So the
And-
bottom line is that we started to think about, how is this thing going to be made and who's going to make it? And believe it or not, just because it looks nice and black and it has like a little green thing around it and it's got a little inner, these are originals. So you have to buy a mold that makes this. And they start at $30,000. And I started to realize I only want 100 of them, right? And so I started to think about, I'm walking into hell's gates right there. The more money I spent, the more I started to realize, you know, I need an investor. Well, there's nobody that I can get a hold of that's going to say, yeah, I'll put up $20,000. That's nothing compared to what it's going to take. So the question is, I had to learn from my own mistakes, and they were costly. But I started to realize that I had to find somebody in China that were going to be able to make the molds. So I got the molds made, and it was less than what I thought. I was quite amazed over it. They did such an excellent job, and it has the effects of a regular office business phone. You know, that it's not a shiny black plastic. It's almost like a kind of a textured, a light textured plastic. It's very durable. It's substantial. It weighs about 1.5 pounds or thereabouts. But what we found is that then we had to find a guy who is going to do the electronics and follow the specs, because you can't let somebody do their own specs, because what they're going to do is they're going to find something for what should be like $4, a little piece of electronics. They're going to find it for 10 cents. And they're going to put that, what you're thinking a $4 part is going to go in, they're going to buy it for 10 cents because it's cheaper, and they're going to profit from it. So I had to find somebody that knew exactly what they wanted, how they were going to put it together. And we got the internal parts from another company that was brilliant. And I'm glad I tripped over them, as a matter of fact. But so we sent the plastic housing to them. They do everything. We send it, but they send it back to us in cartons. And then from there, we put it together, put a logo on it, put it in a box. The box is, it comes with the device. I think this is the so-called little plug-in device that you can use. It comes in with a little 8-page, I think it's, yeah, a little 8-page operation manual that kind of gives you an idea what you got to do and how you got to use it, and how it's made and why it's made and everything of that nature. And it comes into a kind of a cool little box that's called the Merlin box. You can see there, it's like a cute little it's a little box that kind of holds the unit by itself. And then we ship it with a guarantee that if you don't like it for 30 days, or I think the warranty is, I mean, what I got here. The warranty is the Merlin will, okay, you have a 3-month warranty. In addition, if you're not satisfied with your Merlin within 30 days of purchase, we'll give you a full money back guarantee. So in other words, we got the confidence level that it's going to do its job for you, that after 3 months, if it goes bad or if there's a problem with it, we give you a new one. So we always want to make sure that we're not just going to sell you something and forget about it. We don't do that. We sell you something, we want to make sure that it's correct.
And Richard, because it creates this log cabin effect, like you mentioned, what's some of the feedback that you get most often? I know earlier you mentioned people feel like they have more confidence, and a lot of that anxiety and depression that we're kind of feeling from the world right now seems to dissipate and go away when they're around it. What are some of the other things you've seen?
Yeah, there's a guy by the name of Bob, and I can't remember his last name. It sounds like Chirpin, but it's not. But Bob bought one who wants to be a distributor, and he lives in Los Angeles, like right next to a 5G, and he wants to move, but he can't. Anyway, long story short, he's constantly sick, always. And so when we sold it to him, he said, "Can I give it back if it doesn't work. And I said, sure. If it doesn't work, let me know and I'll give your money back. I've known Bob for probably 8 years now, somewhere like close to that. He's a guy that just keeps buying our EMR products. So when he heard about the Merlin, he goes, okay, I want that. So when we first sent it to him, he said the thing was operating, it flashed green and blue, green and blue, green and blue. And I thought, well, that's odd. I don't know what that means. So I called up the electronic engineer and I said, why is it flashing to this guy's unit? Why is it going green and blue, green and blue? He said, that's because it's working. It's detecting what the emissions are. Wherever this guy's at, he's in a hot zone, they call it. So I said, oh, that's kind of interesting. I never knew that it would do that. So he says, yeah, if it's going green and blue, that means that it's pulsing and it's really giving out the direction of keeping your environment clean. So the next day I called Bob and I said, Bob, here's what it's doing. He goes, my God, he says, you're absolutely right. He says, I've had this now for 3 or 4 days. And the first day I saw it was flashing. The next day, it's not flashing anymore. And I said, well, why was it flashing? He says, well, they do this. They have a hot zone in Southern California where they have a lot of these 5G things. And when they turn them on, they have a zone where they turn them on high or low or medium. I don't know why. Maybe it's the usage. But he's in this hot zone. When it's turned up high, he feels sick. So, and he has a sinus condition really bad. He has headaches real bad. So he's had it now for a week. He doesn't want to return it, but he says, I'm waiting it to go flashing. He says, it hasn't flashed yet. I go, well, don't worry about it. That means that there's nothing there to flash. I mean, you're okay. So he's one of the guys that I'd love to get his testimonial because he was having terrible headaches, had a constant sinus condition that he just felt always sick. But he watches his health really well. And he believes that a lot of it has to do with the emission, the 5G tower. So
what is the difference? So if it's green, what does that mean? If it's flashing, I mean, if it's just pure green,
if it's on, I shut it off here a while ago, but I mean, if it's on, if I turn this on and it'll stay on, you'll see a green, it's actually a white light. And this is kind of like a green band. Okay. I don't know whether you can see that. There's a green band showing. Okay, if for some reason I'm around or exposed to a lot of power that is excessive, this thing will actually turn blue, green, blue, green. And what it's doing, it's pulsing that antenna out and it's giving you the indication that it's working. Now, the reason why this is just green, it's still giving me the protection of the 7 meter area, but there's nothing that's basically here that's harmful outside of the very simple fact that I'm just normally getting 4G. There's no 5G here right now in Southern Nevada. I don't know why. We're really kind of like waiting for that next foot to drop. But in certain parts of Las Vegas, there's a lot of 5G. But here in this city, there's not a lot of 5G. So it remains at that constant green look. So, and that's all it's doing. Now, when there's something that's a behavioral problem, like if you have something that's committing a lot of energy coming towards you, this thing will definitely flash. That's what it's made for. So the electronic engineer is not a marketing guy. He's sort of the guy, well, that's just the way it works. Well, I want that. I want to show that in the video. I wanted to show that's the essence of it. But, it's relatively new to us. We've only had it now for, 3.5 weeks, maybe. Yeah, about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. And
are there any pieces that need to be like replaced ever?
Not really outside of the battery.
Yeah. And then any reason that it would need to, like, would it ever turn red and it needs to be repaired or something
Yeah,
broke?
no, what I understand, if the battery is going bad, the battery will stop working, and there's no power. The light in here will turn orange or red, which means the power needs to be changed. Your battery needs to be changed. And all that instructions are in that little manual
Yeah.
that we had. But I didn't have the idea. That's why I said I wanted to put that in that if it's flashing, colors, then that means it's actually protecting you. But I didn't know about that, and then I printed this thing before I even knew about it. So it's going to be things you got to learn as you go down the aisle where we are at. So anyway, I don't know if you want me to say any more, but I'm telling you, this is it's a new experience for us, and we're kind of excited about it. Needless to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have some definitely some questions.
So do you usually recommend, say, one per family member, one per household, or does it just kind of depend on, for example, if you've got two people working from home, you would want one in each room where they're working or something to that nature?
Yeah, and Michelle, that's a good question. We determined that usually it's okay to have one in a place where you're most active. I would say if you wanted to get two, one for upstairs and one for downstairs, that would still work. In other words, you want to have it in a place where you sleep. Like, for instance, I have an upstairs area and I have like an office thing for my upstairs. And I use that for getting people to realize that it's there and you're in and out of that environment. It's sort of like your log cabin is right there. If you want to go towards it, you can. What we say is that even if you walk away from it, you're still okay. It's just that you want to have that protection around you. It's like this invisible protection. But even if you walked away from it, like if you had it in your living room and you had 25 feet away is where your kitchen is, and you're working in the kitchen, it's okay because you're going to go back to the place where it is and you'll still be protected.
But you can also, I mean, it's mobile, right? I mean, you
Right.
can
It's very,
pick it up
very-
and move it, which is great. And it's small and it's lightweight. And
Yeah,
20 feet and 29 feet is pretty extensive. Like,
Pretty
I mean, even in our house, like if we put it right behind us, it would be able to literally cover pretty much majority of the places that we have electronics, right? Because it's going to go through the wall
Yeah,
into our bedroom, which is on the other side of this wall.
right.
And so, I mean, it's just, so, that's something definitely to consider is, location, because you don't think of it like, well, it's only, you need to put it in the middle of your living room. It's like, no, you should probably put it on the edge of the living room.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just enough where it's going to cover, all the different moving parts.
Right.
29 feet, 7 meters is, it's a pretty extensive amount.
Yeah, and again, even if I call it 7 meters, but I mean, I was talking to one of the electronic engineers, and he says, 7 meters is like that's its minimum area, but it may extend to 12 meters. It all depends upon the power that you're putting into it. That's why I said what we recommend is that you just kind of like play with it. You just have to understand the process in which it works. Having yourself around something that is protecting you is kind of important because that's the only way that you're going to find yourself being in an active position. Now, when you go outside, yeah, you can even take it with you in your car if you want to, but it's not necessary. As long as you go outside and you're out and you're having a soccer, walking around, looking at your kids play soccer and things like that, you're there, you're outside of your home, that's fine. You come back to your home, you're in that protective zone again. So it's not like you have to have it 24/7, 7 days a week, or otherwise you're gonna get sick. That's not the purpose. The purpose is just getting it, keeping it around you, and you're having that protection that's constantly feeding you good stuff.
And Richard, what's the expected, like, how long do you, like, if someone takes care of it, obviously doesn't drop it, all that stuff, like, how long do you think, should it go 5 years, 10 years without any problems?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what we give it, a 3-month warranty. If something happens up to 3 months, we give you another one. We don't think you're going to have a problem with it unless you drop it. Then that's a whole different issue. We can't necessarily say, well, you dropped it, I can't give you a new one.
Yeah.
But my point is that where the electronic engineer is saying right now, there's nothing moving in here. There's no electronic movement. It's just all done by the power that it's producing. An EMP is producing that pulse. So there's nothing mechanical there. So I would imagine that you're going to probably have, I mean, it could be, 4 years, 5 years, maybe even longer.
Wow.
We're going to try to, yeah, go ahead.
And anyone who knows computers knows that the computers that have movable parts in them don't last nearly as long as the computers that don't.
Yes.
So the fact that it has no movable parts also speaks to its longevity.
Yeah.
Richard, because it's giving out this 8 hertz and it's constantly giving you that protection, how does that stack against other EMF devices like that have additional frequencies or other types of EMF protection in them? For
And that's a good,
example,
yeah, that's a good question. We've studied this for a long period of time. We started to realize that your environment, without any protection at all, your home right now in your office is producing that 60 hertz. Now, 60 hertz is relatively safe, but somebody was telling me that 60 hertz is producing EMF, which is electromagnetic radiation. So that word radiation is with you in your home 24/7, 7 days a week, with you constantly, because you're living in an environment that's producing 60 hertz. So the Merlin is only going to happen, it will only help you if you are in a 4G and 5G environment. And you know that that signal causes you to have an array of different problems. And it could be anything from the symptoms could be very similar to depression. There's some people that get relatively angry faster when they're around a lot of emissions, or they'll get dizzy, or they'll get headaches. You have to go look at some of the symptoms when you're around 4G and 5G issues.
But Richard, I mean, I know that you have like the 5G things for the cell phone and the bracelet.
Right.
So like if you're doing Merlin, then
With that,
yeah, on top of that, would that be, redundant? Would that be,
are they good compliments for each other?
Yeah. Would it be?
yeah, those are two different factors. And when I say that is that your electronics in your home is producing 60 hertz, and it's always going to be producing 60 hertz unless you have something really powerful in your home that's causing you to eat up to send out more. But most people don't. But what you do is, and that's why we have the cell phone, the smart cell phone shield, and that's why we also have a 5G bracelet. And those products help you defend against the 60 hertz that's within your home. The electronic engineering of that will also protect you against your computer that's putting out a lot more than 60 hertz at times, and of course your cell phone. So around your environment, Michelle, that's what I was trying to explain to you. Your environment, if you were to look at it, I mean, it's like a smog. And if you were to see that electromagnetic smog effect, if it were in color, it would be this orangey, yellow, grayish color around you, your children, and your environment constantly. And you breathe it, you eat it, you swim with it, you do everything around it with it, and it's eventually going to cause some kind of defect. We don't know what, because there's not enough study that your body will either accept it and say it's okay, but your human body is not going to say it's okay. It's going to show a symptom, and that symptom is confusing because a lot of doctors will say, well, you're just depressed. I'll give you something that will help your depression. When in fact, what it is that they've reached a limit to the 4G and 5G emissions and or the electronic in your home. It's a collection of all those together that makes your environment sort of unsafe. And, you know, we just don't understand how electromagnetic works in your home because there's not enough study with it. But I try to analyze it myself, and I realize that maybe if I painted a picture of if it was a yellow, greenish, gray emissions, you would see it and you would go, oh my God, I got to get away from this. It's horrible. Well,
Yeah.
that's what your house and your environment looks like, but it's invisible to us. So, you know, it's hard to accept sometimes that, you know, there's an easy fix. There is not really an easy fix at all. The problem
But
is,
you know, but you're also saying that, so like if someone were to have the Merlin and then they were also doing, let's just say, like a 5G bracelet, you know,
Right.
that wouldn't be redundant. They would be doing a little bit different things within the bandwidth of what you're saying, because you are in
Yes.
that kind of smog and it's almost like different colors affecting you in a way.
Right, right, yeah. The word I was searching for a while ago was negative ion. Negative ion is the one that what I was telling you about is that creates that feeling of having that, you know, when you're around something like a waterfall and something like that, that's an invisible source. But yet people, when they're around that, feel comfortable. They feel good inside because your body needs that, your mind needs that. So that's, you know, you have to stop and realize that we are up against a huge amount of distorted energy that is sometimes it's useful for our equipment, but not useful for the human body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta know that, you know, you gotta protect yourself. Now, Marcola just basically said, get away from it if you don't feel good. Well, that's hard to, if you work and you're around electronics, you got no choice. If you're going to use your phone like I do, I usually put it on speaker and I use my speaker phone before I do anything else. But it gets embarrassing if you want to talk to your wife and you're in a big crowd and she's saying, I don't like your attitude, General. You know, Jerry, just change your attitude. But I guess my point is that, you know, it's kind of funny that we live in a society right now that accepts the defaults that we are moving into. You know, I just wish sometimes somebody like if we had another type of Elon Musk that would invent something without electronic engineering or the use of electricity. We need a power that would enable systems to work and that would be comfortable for us to be around. That would be the ideal scenario, but we don't have that.
Yeah.
And but that would be the most ideal scenario, and maybe the future will have that. But as of today, right now, we're stuck with this. I mean, you got to have a phone, a cell phone, and I mean, I've seen people use those extended old phones where they have the, you know, the speaker on one side and the earphone on the other side. And they have it plugged into their to their cell phone, and you just often wonder they're trying to escape the effects.
Yeah.
They look a little stupid, you know what I mean? It's just the way we are as people, you know. I guess we're trying to find something that works for us, but we don't know what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that said, so here it is, guys, the Merlin that we've been talking to you guys about for the last couple of months. And it's $1,250. But what we wanted to do is also offer everyone, you know, that gets it, that will also send you guys 4 electromagnetic, you know, radiation blocker bracelets and phone shields. So we'll send
So
you
you'll get 4
4
of each, that way the whole family.
Yeah, because we're just thinking like this is really like a family unit. And so, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, if you don't have 4 people in your household, then, you know, you can gift it to somebody. But, you know, that's what we wanted to kind of do for you guys. Because again, I think this is, you know, a really cool, cool technology to be able to kind of, you know, be in a log cabin without going, right? It's like being on vacation, but you might not be able to actually go on vacation, you know? So,
Yeah.
we're excited to try it out.
Yes.
Yeah. it's sort of like getting away from the headaches that you're normally getting through by having something that's electronics or non-electronics that help you work and play together in your home without having the effects that you're under the gun constantly because of EMF and EMR. That's something we had studied for such a long period of time, and I'll tell you, it got so bad, I should say, that we had all the correct answers, but then we had a lot of people that just didn't want to hear the truth. And the only thing to them was that I don't feel bad. I feel okay. Why would I buy something to make me feel better if I feel okay now?
Yeah.
It's like educating themselves into saying, but if your body could talk to you, it would slap you around because your brain doesn't think right.
No, and we don't realize what we're really feeling. It's kind of like if you're always in a haze and that becomes the norm, how do you really know that you don't feel good?
It's
You
like
know?
with sugar, so many people consume sugar products or products that have sugar in them, and it's not until they completely cut it out and go months on end without it that they realize that they've been in a fog in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that
So I think
mind.
it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that mind that creates the problem. And again, we don't, I don't want to scare people into saying, you got to have this. It's the very simple fact that we're running into every day we run into people who've got something to say that they're not sure what they're going through, but they want answers. We try to tell them that all of our products are made primarily for humans. We try to make sure that we understand that we're not against pharmaceutical scenarios at all, but when you got to have a pharmaceutical, that's no problem. You go do it. But when you're trying to find something that's invisible, that's making you feel depressed, then look towards the fact is that it's your environment. That's your first line of defense. It's where you are, where you work. And a lot of people just don't recognize that until they find a way to go, I understand that now because I've got a hold of, Michelle told me what my blood type was, and then I've got this whole new answer, and which is true. We just need to have people ask the right questions and try to modify their life as best they possibly can.
Yeah. So then does anyone have any questions before Richard gets off and before we end the talk? Feel free to type it in or you can unmute yourself.
So what is the process of buying that package?
You can
Just
email
let
us
us
and
know.
yeah, just let us
Yep.
know. We'll put in the order for you and we can get that done.
And you can email us. It's info@drmeandyou.com, all spelled out. Or you can text us. And we'll put that information in the chat.
Yeah, I have to say that's a very good concept that you guys are coming up with. The Merlin by itself and the bonus products that you're going to get with it. I mean, once you start using that, you're going to start feeling different about who you are and the choices that you make. Those are good things. These are all positive scenarios for people living in the 21st century. I have to keep saying that. But
And I know we didn't cover this, but Richard also makes little pet products.
Oh yeah.
There's this one really cool one called Calm that it's a sticker and we put it on our dog's bed when we travel with her. And it's amazing. We love that thing.
Yeah, it's called Pet Zone. And we've made that, we've been making that product for about, 18, 19 years now in that range. And we've sold thousands of those products for people who have small dogs that have problems just being that because of their small dogs, they have a tendency to kind of like bark a lot or they want more attention. And a lot of it is the very simple fact that brain is not wired correctly. And So they'll bark a lot, they want a lot of attention. And the minute they start utilizing that frequency that calms them down, they turn into a completely different dog. I mean, that's that, and flea and pet, or the flea and tick product, are probably the biggest ones we sell. Calm is one that probably outsells everybody, but animals are basically living organisms just like we are. They got the same kind of problem. They just can't communicate, that they're having a problem. But it's pretty easy that when you start reducing their anxiety, it helps them, and they reduce a lot of problems that are due to being alone a lot, or having nobody that they can feel like they have a friend or something. That animals are very, very similar to us, and we don't have somebody to talk to, and we're lonely a lot, we get depressed.
Yeah.
So same thing with an animal.
Mhm.
So anyway, if there's no other question, I've got to obviously run, because my wife is probably going to call me up and say, what in the heck are you doing? I normally like to talk, but I mean, the business, of course, keeps me pretty busy, and I've done a lot of these before. When I was, well,
Richard, I'm actually curious. Do you think like your frequency patches, if someone has this device and they're also doing the patches, I would imagine theoretically the patches will work even better, right? Because you're not having the extra interference coming from, the radiation, from the body, or your body interacting with that, right?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I keep going back to your environment. We've had a lot of people that have claimed that if your environment is relatively safe, and you're exercising as much as you can, you're hydrating yourself, and you start to learn to take care of yourself after you get the age of maybe 40 to 41. You start to realize, hey, my health is deteriorating, I've got to start doing something. And all of a sudden you start to realize, I haven't drunk a bottle of water for about 4 years. And we've had people say, I hate the taste of water, I don't even drink it. Well, what do you drink? Well, usually a beer, or I'll drink a lot of tea, or I love coffee. And of course, my go-to thing is Coke or 7-Up. And they buy the sugar ones that are, the 32-ounce things. And, you start to realize, people don't mean to be ignorant, but they are in a sense. You just need to tell people, what do you have to do in order for you to just be a better person and take care of yourself first? Because without us reminding of that to them, they lose track. They care for somebody else, or maybe care for their pet, but they don't care for themselves. And that's the hard part, is that you got to get people to recognize that maybe I should take care of myself a little bit better. And that's our main customer. Those are our customers. They go, I've had it, I don't want to do this anymore, what do I do to get myself back on track? And those are the questions that we like, and we kind of tell them, you got to work with somebody who that can help you. They have answers, we've got tools, but you need to get somebody who's going to answer your questions. And you two guys are great for doing that, because here you are.
And we've actually utilized Richard's patches. We have a whole weight loss program that utilizes the patches, that combines like the leptin, which is the signal to the brain that you're full. It uses HCG. So if anyone's ever done any research about HCG injections, those were very popular for quite a while. This is the frequency for HCG. And then we also have another package for acne and for skin issues that we put together that combines some of his products for skin healing and skin repair.
Yeah, because he has not just the frequency patches, but he also has something called New Face, which is like a spray.
And I use it every day, and it's
pretty great.
fantastic. It's a combination of essential oils and frequencies that actually help rebalance the microbiome of the skin. So you're feeding your skin rather than stripping it away with products and washes and things like that.
Boy, Michelle, you are great, because that's exactly what it does. And it's funny that you had mentioned that, because when we first brought it together to a guy who actually was going to make it for us, those are the factors we wanted to have, is that when people wash their face, they're washing away, all the good bacteria and the bad bacteria off your face. And what's left is that your face is dry and it gets wrinkly really fast.
Yeah.
So you can put a moisturizer that helps keep the good bacteria in check and gets rid of the bad bacteria. And you do that, you spray yourself maybe once or twice, even 3 times a day. People love it. We've sold thousands of those new face products. And we keep trying to do things that invoke an interest. And we just don't sell a little supplement that's vitamin C and vitamin D, and that's it. Goodbye. We don't do that. We try to answer all the questions. We try to get products that nobody else has got, that we know are vital, but they're just not exposed enough properly, and that's where it is. And weight loss is one of our biggest sellers, again, because people want to do that shot thing. They want to have, instant gratification. And ours is very simple. You can lose 5 pounds, 6 pounds a month, be healthy and be happy. Within a year, you're going to go down to a weight that you're going to love, as long as you don't go back sitting on the couch eating potato chips, watching something with a patch on you. It's not going to work. You got to get away from the foods that cause that problem.
One individual that we work with, she's been utilizing the patches and doing quite a bit of lifestyle and diet changes. And in the last 2.5 to 3 months, she's lost over 60 pounds.
Wow, that's fantastic. And you want to hear that because you want to help people get to that level. And all it is exposure, just getting them to recognize you don't have to do that expensive shot that's going to help you or not help you. A lot of people are getting sick from it, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but it's because, the media feeds us things that we think we want. And the media is really controlling everything. Our advertisements are, and if you got enough money, you can get anything or anybody to talk about a product that's bad for you that you need to use. And that's who we are as people. And you got to work around those issues as best you can.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No. All right, Richard, I
It was
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing everything.
You bet. You guys have a great evening. And I know you're going to probably continue doing what you're doing. But I do appreciate your time with me, and we'll do that again.
All right.
Sounds great. Thank you for joining us.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Let's just stop the recording and then let you keep it open to questions.
I have a question. I'm curious to know